Hello everybody and welcome to this tutorial. Today I will start a chapter on footprinting. So I have explained what the act of footprinting is before, but now we will actually go ahead and conduct a few scans to see how it all works and introduce you to the tools that we will be using. So first off, we need to find ourselves a target to scan. Of course, I could just scan myself or something of a kind, but that would not be a realistic thing really because I already know what the results are going to be, and plus on top of that, I'm not scanning long range over the internet or something of a kind. I would be scanning within my own local network, so the speeds of the scan would not be realistic as it would be a lot faster than say when you conduct a scan over the net, some distant and remote server. So what I did was I went online, and you can do the same, and I found on the official Nmap website, they have a section devoted to actually allowing people to scan them to test their tool out. Now I'm selecting the permission. There is a written permission here that you can actually scan this website, and they basically say, I mean, you can scan it to test it out. A few scans a day here is fine, but do not scan 100 times a day or use this to test your SSH brute force password cracking tools, etc. So that's definitely something you don't want to do, but you can run a few scans on this site per day, and according to them, that's perfectly fine. You are not breaking any laws or anything of a kind. I'm just emphasizing one more time that you do have a written permission right here on the site, which is fantastic because it gives us an opportunity to actually simulate real-time circumstances and see how Nmap behaves. Now, Nmap is an unescapable tool of pretty much any pen tester out there. Many people say today, well, that it's pointless to port scan, doesn't do you much good, and so on and so forth. Well, perhaps in terms of exploiting the services running on the ports themselves, it doesn't do you that much good, but just by seeing which ports are open and which ports are closed, you can, to a fairly good extent, determine what operating system or what platform is being used on the other side. And then you can find weaknesses of that same platform. Of course, there are some other ways in doing this. I will show them to you, like banner grabbing or something of a kind. But let's just see how Nmap really works. Now, Nmap is known to basically trigger quite a lot of alarms, quite a lot of firewall red flags, so to say. And you want to make sure that your Nmap scans are as quiet as possible. Now there are tools to actually figure this out, but I will show you here how to actually do it via terminal. There's also something called Nmap. Now Nmap is basically a graphical user interface of Nmap, but we will not be using that. Rather instead, I want to teach you how to use a terminal version. So Nmap is the one most commonly used, and it is always used in the terminal text format. Rarely anybody uses the actual graphical user interface. In the previous chapter, we have also discussed how to stay anonymous. So at the end of this chapter, I will be combining these things, footprinting, and the act of scanning, and anonymizing your scans. However, you might think about that before you get to the final tutorial of this chapter and perhaps try to do it yourselves. It doesn't matter if you fail or something of a kind. It truly doesn't. What is important is that you give it a shot, and you try it once, okay, failure, fine, no problems. Try it twice, thrice. The fourth time, you're bound to have some sort of results. As long as you keep improving yourselves, it's fine. In any case, without further ado, let's just type in, just nmap dash dash help. Oops, I mistyped that, of course. Nmap. Press enter, and there we go. There are a lot of options here. I mean, a ton load of options. Way more options than we actually need for some sort of basic things. However, eventually over time you will come to understand that all of these options are not here for nothing. They are here because they were needed at some point of time, and they are pretty much all still used. So what you need to do is scroll down to the bottom, And here you have examples of how Nmap runs. So you type in Nmap -v almost always, 99% of times, 99% of time is verbose output. Basically, you're telling your system to give you more information in regards to what it is doing. -a, I'm not sure what this function is. Oh, okay, here it is. -a, enable OS detection, version detection, script scanning, and trace route. Don't think we're going to need that immediately. There is -o function, which is just for OS detection. Anyway, and then you can pass either this one, you see scanme.nmap.org, which is basically the domain name, which will get resolved to an IP address, or you can actually pass it an IP address. And if you're wondering what this is a mask. And it would be very difficult to explain in great detail what this is, but for the time being, know that this is actually an IP address range. So it goes from a certain IP address to a certain IP address, because this goes way into networking and binary numbers and so on and so forth. But you do not actually need to use this format. Not that many people actually use this particular format with the mask. They just tend to specify very specific ranges because they usually don't have the permissions to scan the entire subnet. Rather, instead they have to create lists and then skip certain IP addresses and then continue again from a certain point. So they do need to create lists, and that can be a problem. Now, up here, at the top, you have another very important option that's going to come in handy. You have -il, input file name. So you can actually create a list, or in a file, a list of IP addresses, and then you can scan those particular IP addresses. There will also have an ability to do this. Look at what's written here. So just take a look at this segment, and it's 10, 0, and then this segment here, this octet here, it's 0 to 255, and then the last octet is 1 to 255. If you're wondering why I'm calling these things octets, it's because they have 8 bits. Each one of these has 8 bits, and it is represented in a binary form, so it can have 8 zeros, or I don't know, 8 ones, or a combination of ones and zeros, but it has 8 bits, so 8 positions. That's why they're called octets. This is a very common form that people tend to use, and this is what you will find your cells using. Either this will be a method in which you will specify the IP addresses, or you will be passing files. So these files, usually people, well, they either make them themselves, or they can find these IP addresses on the internet. So in addition to this site, nmap.org, you also have this one here, major IP blocks. Let me just see if I've typed in that correctly. And this is yep, there it is. Okay, so this is a fantastic website. The entire range of pretty much all the IP addresses are listed here, and it also says who owns what. It doesn't say for every one of them who owns which one, but for example, you can search and find, and it's going to give you the appropriate IP addresses for that particular country, and it's going to give you the owner of those IP addresses. Usually it's just telecoms, but you also have other people who own them as well. So let's just give it a shot. Search, I don't know, let's just type in Germany, or I don't know, France, whatever. Okay, this is not the proper search, but no, that's not a problem. Actually, you can find it down here, and I'm not going to type it in here, or I could. Control F, France, there we go, down here, just saving myself a bit of time there, and there we go. So you have a range. This is a given range here. It's from 2000 to 215, 255, 255. This is a massive range. This is a humongous range. Look at how many. This is how many IP addresses you can have in total, how many of them you can generate within this range. So it's quite a lot. It's French Telecom. I don't know, for some reason they need it, so you can sort them out by the owner. And you can see that a lot of them are actually not listed here. Wow, France has like a lot of IP addresses assigned to it. They're not free, they cost money. Let's just go ahead and see down below. Where is it? Where is it? Okay, so you see all of these IP addresses, and this is a pretty massive range. So this is a telecom in in France, sorry, not in French, in France. Look at how many IP addresses ranges they have. So that's quite a lot. And this site, as I said previously, you can use to figure out which IP address range do you wish to scan, but you usually do not have the permission to scan the entire range. You can scan certain IP addresses within that range for which you have a permission, but also a very nice site to determine where the IP address is from or something like that. However, always remember, once you get an IP address, your search engines on the net are your best friends. This is one of major components of footprinting. You can do the following. You can type in who space is and then type in an IP address. I don't know, I'm just going to type in this random IP address. So if you don't want to see it here, you can have a look at it here. Oops. Who is. And I don't know, somebody's going to tell me who this guy is, or to whom does this. There we go. So I've typed in who is, and I've picked the first website out that I could find, and here I have all the information in regards to that particular IP address. I have a country, I have the username of the admin, I suppose. I have its status, remarks, source. I even have yep, there we go. There's actually an address, a physical address of the IP address, which is ridiculous. Yeah, so as I said, search engines are your best, and I mean absolutely best friends. If you want to find pretty much anything on the net or something like that in regards to an IP address to do any sort of research. So those are the two tools that I have showed you. Actually, three of them. Well, one tool and two websites that you can the one tool, one website, and one search method, which you can use in order to determine where the IP address is from or who is using it, and even to determine its physical location. Although its physical location can be assigned to a telecom, and that telecom can assign it to a city and to a specific region in the city or something of a kind, and then you can find it on Google Earth or something of a kind, but usually those things are not that precise. What is precise, however, is that the IP address belongs to a telecom or something of a kind, and they keep rotating them in between the cities. So if you have, let's say, 100,000 IP addresses that you've scanned, and if you wish to sort them out by the city, you will get like 70 to 90% accuracy depending on for which country did you do it. Can be problematic because you're going to miss out on some things, but if you don't need 100% accuracy, you can get your sorting done pretty well. There are databases which you can update. I will show you these things. They're called GeoIP lookups. But before we do that, you also have something called NS lookup, and I'm just going to use this generic name here, scanme.nmap.org. Let's paste it. And there we go. I have basically said I want to look up files on scanme.nmap.org, and okay, this is my DNS server, which is basically my router. You see it says port 53. You know immediately that it's DNS because all DNS traffic runs on port 53. And then we have the results. So this is the domain name, and you get the IP address down below. So this is also one of the ways in which you can get the IP address of a site with a domain, because once you know the domain, you don't actually know the IP address until you look it up or something like that. But there's a far simpler method. You don't need to use NSLOOKUP. Oh, by the way, NSLOOKUP also works in reverse. So just type in NSLOOKUP, and you can type in the IP address. So just go ahead and press enter. Okay, so this has run through a process of some sort down below. These are authoritative answers from the, it says name servers. Basically what that means, they are DNS servers, and they're giving you responses and telling you to whom the domain belongs to and so on and so forth. But look, ignore this part, and for the time being we can also ignore this part until we get into DNS, into spoofing the DNS and changing it and so on and so forth. What I want to show you here is that you can actually get a domain name by typing in ns lookup and then the IP address, and here where it says non-authoritative answer, you get the IP address and then you get the name, which is the domain name. However, you might notice that there is a problem here, that this IP address does not match this one. Well, guess what? It actually does. Try looking at in reverse. So it's 74, 74 here, 207, 207 here, 244, 244 here, and 221 here, and 221 here. So when you do an NS lookup, and when you pass in an IP address, it's going to do a reverse lookup in the DNS MX records or something of a kind. It's gonna query the DNS servers, and the DNS servers are gonna give it a response. But in the MX records, this is basically how things are written. You write an IP address in reverse, and then you put this in -addr.rpop. But this part really is not that interesting to us. This is more interesting to server admins who configure the DNS servers or something of a kind. In any case, for the time being, but don't worry, we will get to DNS servers in the later stages of this tutorial once we are done with these things. In any case, what is important for you here is you've typed in an IP address, you've used a tool called NSLookup, and you have gotten a domain name in return. And now you can start doing some other things as well, but we will be dealing primarily with Nmap as a tool in order to scan networks and to retrieve information from them. But this, what I've showed you now, is some basic information retrieval and some basic external sources that you can use. In any case, I'll see you in the second in part 2 or the second tutorial of Nmap introduction, and there we're going to actually conduct some scans and see how it all works. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.